You're listening to Seek Travel Ride, a podcast all about taking incredible bike adventures. And if you love the conversations that you hear on the podcast, you can experience them live. Join me in London on May 14 and 15 for Beyond the Bike. It's going to be a special night of adventure cycling stories, bike adventure film screenings, and a live Q&A with a panel of previous podcast guests. Tickets are on sale now. They will sell out fast. So make sure to grab yours at the link in the podcast show notes in your podcast player app. Today's show sponsor is Old Man Mountain. If you're into bike adventures, you need to strap gear on your bike. Old Man Mountain have the right equipment to get you there on your bike travel journey. Check out their new product line, Hemlock Bag with Flip Cages. Check them out at oldmanmountain.com. Support the brands that support the podcast. And now, let's listen to today's episode. Hello everyone, Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride. Welcome to another midweek mini episode where we fuel your stoke and wanderlust for bike adventures. This week I have got an exciting story, a very unique story in fact, from Mark Doble, and he's going to tell us about one day of his trip when he was crossing the Nullarbor Plain in Australia. I'm also going to be giving a shout out to many of you fans who responded to my question on our Instagram story where I asked the question of what country is the best for bike travel. And I'm also going to give an update on where some of our previous guests are now since I've interviewed them. I've interviewed a fair few guests who were actually midway through their journey or about to start their journey, and I thought it would be a nice touch to share with you where their adventures have taken them since we spoke. Okay, without any further ado, let's listen to Mark share one day of his trip.
G'day Bella, Mark Doble, aka Rotovelo across Australia. One day of my ride. I'll go back to my first crossing of Australia, which also turned out to be my first ever bicycle tour. It's either go big or go home. I've been cycling for about a week. I reached the town of Norseman where I took a rest day. Took in the sights, restocked everything to begin the week-long crossing of the Nullarbor Plain. On leaving Norseman, I'd been riding for about 45 minutes. I dropped out of mobile coverage area, so I was just riding along, enjoying the sights. And I came around a bit of a bend in the road and it had a little bit of a downhill run down as a bit of a dip. And as all our cyclists do, put it in the big ring and go hard so you can keep some momentum to climb out the other side. As I'd probably gone 300 metres, I noticed something in the bush that was moving, and out here in Australia, if you're driving around the bush, you'll often see emus run beside you in the traffic. And what had happened is I spotted the emu in the bush, but by the time my brain had recognised what it was, and I didn't have time to react, it just shot straight out of the scrub and collected me and the bike all in one hit. It gave the bike a bit of a hell of a whack. It frightened the life out of me and sent me careening off the opposite side of the road. What seemed like 4 seconds of time actually ended up feeling like 10 minutes. I eventually came to rest on the opposite side of the road in amongst the dirt and the saplings. And at this point, I thought, this is the end of my ride. It's all finished. It's all over. Between the realisation that everything's probably come to an end and the fright of the emu shooting out of the bush straight at me, it was rather an emotional moment, and I think I burst into tears for about 5 minutes just to get over the initial shock. I eventually got myself calmed down a bit. Meanwhile, no traffic had been passed. So fortunately, no oncoming traffic. I'd managed to get the bike back up onto the road. To do this, I had to unload half the camping gear out of it because the Rotovelo weighs 35 kilos on its own. Plus I had 20 kilos worth of camping gear and water all stowed inside. I get the bike up onto the road, and as I'm dragging it back up the embankment, I can hear the tinkling noises off the wheels. What I thought sounded like broken spokes turned out just to be loose gravel stones dropping inside the wheel covers, giving that rattling sound. So I get the bike up onto the road to take stock of the damage. Where the emu had hit the front of the bike, it had caved in. and I couldn't crank the pedals over. So immediately I thought, this is it. It's definitely all over. How do I get home from here? Long story short, I managed to climb inside the velomobile head first. I get down into where the pedals are. I managed to bash the panel work out with just enough room to crank the pedals over. I checked all the other framework. Everything seemed to be straight. So I took it for a ride for about 200 metres down the road, did a U-turn, came back to where my gear was stashed. Everything seemed to travel all right. Gears were changing. I had a derailleur in those days. A triple chain ring, everything worked okay. So I thought, oh, well, we'll pack everything back in and keep heading off to the east. I came across a picnic table about 45 minutes later. My nerves had calmed down. The day had started to look a little bit brighter, and I decided a morning tea break was in order, which if I'd had a bottle of scotch, I think I probably would have knocked a lot of it over in one fell swoop. But notwithstanding that, got everything back on the bike, all packed up, and continued on and proceeded to ride out 160 k's for the day. A very eventful moments, and something I've certainly never forgotten. The excitement of being hit by an emu out in the middle of nowhere, no oncoming traffic as I shot across the road to try and avoid it. I made it a very special day, and one I'm certainly not going to forget in a hurry. So at the moment I'm in Fremantle, just doing final preparations to do another ride, heading back over east, Fremantle to Sydney, and probably as a fundraiser this time for the Royal Flying Doctor Service. One thing I'll add in, for those, a lot of people wouldn't know what a roto-velo was. It's a recumbent trike enclosed inside aerodynamic fairing, commonly referred to as a velomobile. The roto-velo is actually made by a company called Tri-Sled here in Australia. And not a lot getting around in our parts of the world. I decided to go the recumbent way about 25 years ago, just as a much more comfortable way to ride. No back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, certainly no saddle sores. And basically, you just get tired from pedalling all day. I will say, though, that the velomobile is not a light machine. It's certainly not a carbon fibre. It's a roto-moulded plastic. All up, just the bike on its own weighs in at about 33 kilograms. This first ride of my touring experience, I've done probably 30-odd years' worth of motorcycle touring, so I was used to camping out in the bush. I've done much of that, and I decided that it was coming up to my 50th birthday. I'm not a big party sort of person, so I checked in with a good lady wife and just said, I don't want to party, I just want to go out and go for a push bike ride for a week or so and do a bit of camping. Is that okay? And she gave me her blessing. Little did she know it would end up becoming a major expedition. And doing research for this week-long trip I was going to take just away from home and a bit of touring, I came across a blog of a young guy riding a similar sort of trike to what I'd owned at the time, and he was pedalling from Sydney to Perth, opposite direction. And over the course of a few weeks, we got chatting through his blog online. I offered him a few hints as to how to survive out in the Australian outback. This guy was from Kuala Lumpur and had never bicycle toured before or in Australia before. So after a few chats, we got quite friendly about it all. Eventually, he finished his ride. He sold his trike at the time and flew back to Sydney. And just out of the blue, one day while I was out riding my roto-velo, I happened to spot him on his trike out on the cycle path. We caught up with each other and had a bit of a chat. I congratulated him on completing his ride and said, what's the sort of chances of an old bloke like me doing something like that? And he pretty much just said, have a go and go for it. So I went home to the Minister of War and Finance, the good lady wife, and with cap in hand, asked for her blessing to go out and do this transcontinental ride. And to my surprise, she said yes, but only on two conditions. One was that I started in Perth and ride home. Psychologically, you're getting closer to home each day. And two, as you're getting closer to me on the way over, if I have to come and rescue you, it's less travel distance I've got to travel. So quite a few months of research went into the trip, and after fully completing it, I was totally gobsmacked that I'd been able to achieve something like that.
Well, Mark, your day really had some things that probably some of us never want to experience ever, and it is such a unique story. Very, very Australian, might I add. And I also have to say, as an Aussie, I definitely love it when I hear the voices of other Aussies who listen to the show. You had a few little Aussie expressions there which took me right back, mentioning things like the bush, go big or go home, the scrub. But my goodness, Mark, hitting an emu, I just cannot imagine. I've come very, very close on a fair few of my own rides with kangaroos, but never actually an emu. And I could imagine that it would have been quite the experience, especially in the Roto Velomobile. And I wonder whether or not you actually fared better because you were in that as opposed to actually just on a conventional bicycle. I wonder, have you actually wondered that yourself? I'd also like to give a shout out to the amazing adventures that you have had. You mentioned this was the first sort of crossing that you had, but you have now done multiple crossings of Australia. I know you had said in this little voice message you were about to take off on another Perth to Sydney journey, but unfortunately, listeners, Mark had to put pay to that due to some injury early on. But as I understand it, Mark is already scheming and plotting his next journey. So I'm glad, Mark, that this hasn't put you off. Obviously, you are pretty addicted to the bike adventure scene, right? Do me a favour, keep me updated on your journey and let me know how you get going there. The other thing quickly that I wanted to talk about too, though, was how you drew inspiration from finding the blog of that rider from Kuala Lumpur who was making his own crossing from Sydney to Perth, and how that sharing of information and swapping of details sort of gave you that inclination and idea to go on further yourself. It's something that I've really learnt a lot here running the podcast is I've had fans tune into episodes and then get in touch with me saying that it was hearing such and such talk about here that made me want to go there. Or I listened to so many episodes and now I'm taking my own bike adventure. And it's exactly the same situation for you there. Seeing someone could do it in this velomobile gave you the idea to do it yourself. I love the adventures that you've had ever since. Thank you for sharing your story on Seek Travel Ride. Now, listeners, also quickly want to shout out the fact that our Beyond the Bike live show in London is happening in just 2 weeks' time on May 14 and 15. There are still a few tickets available for both nights. So if you live in or near London, or perhaps have some friends who live in or near London, make sure to get your tickets. I've got them linked in the podcast show notes, or simply search for Beyond the Bike on the Eventbrite website in London events and you will find us there. I'd love to see as many Seek Travel Ride podcast fans at each of those nights as possible, because it always fills me up to meet my fans in real life as well. Now, listeners, a couple of weeks ago, I put a call out on my Instagram account. If you're not following us there, by the way, what are you doing? You find us on Instagram. Our username is pretty simple, Seek Travel Ride. And I asked you to tell me what's been your favourite country to experience on a bike adventure. And I got bombarded with answers, and I'm going to shout them all out here. Jasper__ST, you said Belgium. Palmer_in_bike, you have said Finland is your favourite country there. Country full of forests and lakes as I understand it. Mad Dog McGlinch, you've said, oh, this is a tough one. But Italy, even though I've only been here one day. I love that. Is that recency bias, Mad Dog McGlinch, or do you still stick to your convictions of Italy? Actually, Italian and previous guest of the show, Muriel Zakuri, you've sneakily said 2 countries here, but I will allow it. You said that China and Saudi Arabia are both your favourite countries to experience. Oscar J. Donovan, you have said Nepal, but it was one of the worst for bikes with the roads. Switzerland is the best for bike travel destination. Oh, Oh, okay. That's interesting. So Nepal may be the best country you visited, but Switzerland the best country you've cycled in, maybe? Malachi_cycles, another previous guest. Hi, Malachi. Malachi is traveling currently with Jamie Hargreaves, and I believe you're both in Thailand now. You have said that Turkey takes the cake for you. So Turkey has been the best country you've travelled in so far. Robert_musichealth_run cycle says, Jordan. Lee.route says, first time abroad cycling, a little lap of Corralejo Fuerteventura on a hired mountain bike. Wahee! That sounds like heaps of fun. Brian.Sampson4, you have said Peru. The varied landscapes, the smooth roads and blueberries and strawberries by the kilo. Oh my gosh, Brian, you have just spoke to me. And look, is another way to mention food on the podcast. I am a forager, Brian, so I love the idea that there's lots of foraging to be had in Peru. Chloe moves _ you said New Zealand. I love New Zealand, Chloe. In fact, I loved it so much I actually got married there. The landscapes are amazing. Hurley_Nathan, you have said Western Australia. Ooh. See, I am an Aussie, but I've actually not spent that much time in the West, and it is an area that I would love to explore more on my bike. And then Fletcher__Smith, you have said definitely Iraq by far. The people are so amazing and friendly. Ooh, wow, Fletcher. That sparks my interest. In fact, recent podcast guest David McCourt, he spoke quite warmly about Iraq when he was there in Kurdistan. You and he could probably swap a few stories together, no doubt. Sue_Chapel says, France by far. I love the small roads, little towns, the fabulous food, and the great wine. Oh, tick, 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 tick for me as well, Sue. And finally, I have another previous guest, Marta Bayus, and you have said Colombia. So there we go. I think we've gone all the way around the world there, and no doubt there are people tuning in who are probably thinking, oh, I would say this or I would say that. And if that is you, get in touch with me on my Instagram page at Seek Travel Ride and let me know what is your favourite country to bike travel through. Now, I'd also like to just take a quick opportunity to give a shout out to some previous guests and give you an update on where their journeys have taken them. Quite often on the podcast, I'm fortunate enough to link up with guests where either just before a journey has started or maybe when they're midway through a journey. And I've often wondered, do listeners of the show ever think, oh, I wonder where such and such is now? So here's a little update on some people. First one is Saima Abu Hamid, or lion.saima on Instagram. Saima is currently in China. Now, when I interviewed Saima, I was talking about his crossings from Alaska to Ushuaia and then also from the North Cape all the way down to Cape Town. And he was just starting to scheme his journey from Melbourne that would take him all the way to Lebanon. And Saima started that trip in Melbourne, made his way all the way up through Central Australia, worked his way through Southeast Asia, and is now crossing the deserts in China. It is mind-blowing the distance he has travelled in that short amount of time. Kudos to you, Saima. You're an absolute legend. Speaking of more legends, Miriam Belkahel, our awesome Moroccan adventurer. I spoke with Miriam when she was in Cape Town in South Africa. She started her journey from Morocco, made her way all the way down West Africa, and was then destined to turn north. Her eventual ending is in Tanzania, where she wants to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And listeners, I can say that Miriam is actually in Tanzania now, which is amazing. And I think Miriam's probably feeling that bittersweet feeling of a journey almost at its end. Miriam is an absolute legend. The way that she engages with the locals is exemplary. And the other thing that I really love about Miriam is she specifically seeks to eke out every single little journey on her adventure. She takes the roads less travelled and she doesn't take a straight line route. She wants to see everything. So yeah, she is in Tanzania now. Marta Bayus. Marta finished her journey. She toured all through South America and is currently on the Komoot Women's Rally, which I think is in Montenegro at the moment. Giacomo Turco. Now, I spoke with Giacomo, I believe, Giacomo, when I spoke, I think you're actually in Peru, or maybe Bolivia. And Giacomo continued to tour through South America. He then returned back to Italy for 2 months and is right now in transit on the way to Cape Town for an epic bike adventure. He plans to cycle all the way back home to Italy from the very tip of Cape Town right through Africa. Giacomo had one of those bumpy starts, let's just say, because he left Rome Airport, but his bike and luggage apparently didn't. So let's hope that your luggage arrives soon, Giacomo. And finally, I have Claire Wyatt. Listeners, Claire's journey has taken her from Mongolia all the way across, and I believe she's now in Albania about to cross through to Montenegro. So she's had some wild adventures as well. So there you go, just a handful of our previous guests and where they are up to. And now it's my favourite time of the show where I get to shout out you, my superfans who have been absolute legends and bought me a coffee. This week I'm giving a shout out to John PB66. And John, you have said, "Hi Bella, I completed a 2.5-month bikepacking trip in the United States from Seattle, Washington to eastern Iowa, covering approximately 3,000 miles in 1992. And it was such a great experience. I discovered your podcast last November and I love hearing about the adventures from your guests. I'm so excited to hear that people are still bikepacking. The first episode I tuned into was with Alistair Humphreys, which inspired me to read his book Moods of Future Joys. I have listened to many other episodes since then. Your podcasts and Alistair's book has inspired me to purchase a Surly disc trucker. I'm entering a new phase in my life now and see bikepacking adventures as a big part of this new phase, thanks to Seek Travel Ride. I can't wait to hear another interview. John from Iowa, USA." Oh, John, this is brilliant. I love that you were out there in 1992 cycling 3,000 miles. That was a huge journey across the states. And that now you're sort of picking up where you left off, a new bike, a new zest for bike adventures, fuel and inspiration from the podcast, stoking your wanderlust, and let's see where you get to on that Surly disc trucker. Thanks so much for being a super fan and buying me a coffee. And listeners, if you too want to be like John and show your appreciation for what I'm producing here at Seek Travel Ride, you can also buy me a coffee. Simply head to buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me a coffee, but more importantly, let me know what is it you love about this show and where is your next bike adventure going to take you. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening. And before you go, don't forget, Beyond the Bike is happening soon in London on May 14 and 15. It's going to be an incredible night of stories, film, and adventure cycling insights with some of the most inspiring guests from the podcast. Tickets are available now, but they're not going to last. So head to the link in the show notes, grab yours, come to one night, or if you're a super fan, come to both. Grab your ticket before they're gone, and I hope to see you there. Before you go, just another shout out to our show sponsor, Old Man Mountain, and their new Hemlock bags with flip cages. They're fork-mounted packs which will attach securely with a hook and lever flip, ensuring a stable, rattle-free ride and easy removal. They're built for durability, they're ideal for your bikepacking adventures. Check them out at our custom link, oldmanmountain.com/Seek Travel Ride, or simply click the link in the show notes. Happy riding!